Ready to dive deep. We're all about yoga today and how it connects to living a more abundant life.
And not just abundant like, in a purely material way.
Exactly. This deep dive is taking its cues from Abundance Wellness Hub, where they're talking about abundance as this feeling of being fulfilled, but like in all parts of your life.
It's more holistic, you could say, like the kind of abundance yoga aims to cultivate.
So, how does that work? I mean, how does yoga go beyond just the poses and unlock that?
It's not just a workout, right?
hmm
Think of it more as this whole system for getting your mind, body, and spirit all in tune with each other.
I'm liking where this is going. It's about the whole package deal, not just like how flexible you can get. But let's break it down, okay? What's actually happening in the body when we do yoga?
You make a good point when you say do yoga. It's really more about the practice, wouldn't you say? Not about being able to perfectly nail every single pose.
Totally. I appreciate that. Okay, so what would you say is a benefit that maybe people don't think about right away? Besides the flexibility thing, obviously.
Well, the source material we're looking at today talks a lot about how yoga actually builds strength.
Which is interesting because a lot of times you just picture like super bendy people, not necessarily strong ones.
Exactly. And it's not about, those big showy muscles either. This is about strengthening your core,
Right.
which, let's be honest, affects everything else you do.
Right, like having a really solid base for everything else to kind of build off of.
Precisely. And the kind of strength we're talking about here isn't just so you can lift a ton of weight. It's more about having that resilience to handle, all the curveballs life throws at you.
Okay, so I'm starting to get how this all ties into abundance, having that inner strength to deal with things. Anything else stand out to you when it comes to physical benefits? Stuff that maybe surprised you?
One thing that really caught my eye was the effect yoga has on your circulation. The source describes it as, get this, a detoxifying system. How cool is that?
That's pretty amazing when you think about it. It's like a total cleanse for your body just by moving with intention. I definitely noticed that now that you mention it. I do feel less blah after I do yoga.
In that feeling of being lighter, having more clarity, that's something so many people experience. And it's not just physical. That paves the way for greater mental clarity as well.
Perfect timing, because I wanted to ask you about the mental side of yoga. In the source, they talk about breath, movement, and mindfulness all working together to create inner peace. What's the connection there?
This is where things get really, really interesting. Yoga really stresses the importance of something called pranayama, which basically boils down to conscious breathing.
Pranayama. I've definitely heard that word before, but I have to admit, I'm not totally sure I could tell you what it means.
Basically, it's about bringing your awareness to your breath and using that to regulate both your energy and your focus. Almost like a direct line to your nervous system, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes it a lot more concrete than I was picturing. So it's not just like breathing in and out, it's breathing with a specific purpose. How does that tie in with the whole, I think this source called it meditation in motion thing?
Well, when you pay attention to the physical sensations that come with yoga, it helps ground you in the present moment, right? So instead of letting your mind race with a million different thoughts, you're focused on your breath, the way your body feels as you move, which ultimately creates this sense of stillness within you.
It's like you're giving your mind a break from all the usual chaos by really zeroing in on what your body's doing.
Exactly. And when you can tap into that stillness, it creates this opening for insights to kind of bubble up, more clarity and a deeper connection to yourself too, which can be so powerful.
It does sound really empowering, I have to say. But let's be real for a sec. Life can get pretty crazy, right? So
Mhm.
how's someone who's super busy, working, family, all that, how can they realistically fit yoga into their routine?
Well, the great thing about yoga is that it really is for everyone, no matter how jam-packed your schedule is. You don't have to be at some fancy studio for hours on end to get the benefits.
That's good to hear because honestly, between deadlines and just trying to keep up with everything, sometimes even finding 10 minutes to myself feels impossible.
It's funny you say that because the source actually mentions that. They emphasize how even those little bursts of practice, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, can make a difference.
Okay, see, now that feels doable. But what about if you're a total beginner? Where do you even start?
I'd say the most important thing is to just pay attention to your body and go slow. You know, the source really stresses the importance of honoring your own pace and starting with gentler movements.
So no pressure to turn yourself into a pretzel on day one.
No way. It's more about learning to be aware of how your body's feeling and honestly, just being kind to yourself. That's what's so cool about yoga. It truly is for everyone. It doesn't matter how old you are, how flexible you are, or what your experience level is.
I love that. So it's not about getting that picture perfect pose for Instagram. It's more about what's going on internally.
100%. It's about that connection you build with yourself, find that inner stillness we talked about, and really cultivating a sense of abundance that just sort of radiates outward.
I love that. This has been so eye-opening. So we've learned that yoga is so much more than just stretching. It's a total mind-body experience that's good for you on so many levels.
And it can even help you live a more abundant life, both on the inside and the outside, which is pretty neat,
We've definitely given our listeners a lot to think about today.
for sure. And it all comes back to this question from our source. How can you bring more mindful movement and breath work into your own life to experience that greater sense of abundance, even if it's just in small ways?
Now, that's a question I'm going to be thinking about for sure. What about you? Anything really resonating with you after this deep dive? It really struck me how they talked about abundance as this, like, total state of being, Not just about having a bunch of stuff, but this richness in every area of your life, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I thought it was really interesting how they tie that into the whole concept of prana. It's that,
Yeah.
that life force energy.
Yeah. They were saying how yoga helps you tap into that and like direct it in a way that creates more well-being. I'll be honest, that part sounded a little, I don't know, kind of out there at first.
It definitely gets into some, let's say, less tangible stuff. But if you think about it practically, when you feel energized, when you feel really alive, you're naturally going to be more up for, well, for everything, right?
Right.
Creating, connecting, just living a life you're stoked on.
Yeah, it's like having a full tank, not just to power through your to-do list, but to actually like enjoy the ride. It reminded me of how the source talked about yoga not being selfish. If anything, it makes you more present and, more available for your people.
Exactly. You show up differently, more fully, and with more intention, too, which is huge. To me, that's a really powerful example of abundance in action.
It really makes you wonder what other practices or honestly, what other ways of looking at things are we missing out on that could help us live more fully?
Right. Such a good question. And hey, maybe this deep dive will be that little nudge for someone listening to, maybe finally try a yoga class, see what it's all about.
I have a feeling this is just the beginning. Who knows what we'll uncover in our next deep dive? Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the stuff that lights you up.